Welcome to this week's Money Metals podcast, helping gold and silver investors during these treacherous times. Now, here's this week's market wrap with commentary and analysis from the company voted 2015's Precious Metals Dealer of the Year in the U.S., Money Metals Exchange.
Welcome to this week's Market Wrap podcast. I'm Mike Leeson. It is my privilege now to welcome in Chris Powell, Secretary-Treasurer at the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, also known as GATA. Chris is a longtime journalist and a hard money advocate, and through his tireless efforts at GATA, he is working to expose the manipulation of the gold and silver markets. Through GATA's works over the years, some important revelations have come to light, which should concern everyone. It's good to have you back with us, Chris. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Oh, delighted to be here, Mike.
Well, I know you've only got a little bit of time here, so I'll keep it short and I'll jump right into it. So on Sunday night, we had yet another attack on the gold market right as it was holding above a critical price support zone. Someone sold several billions of dollars in gold futures contracts during the wee hours of the night right before the Chinese trading day began. It happened during a time of low liquidity like it normally does, and it took the price down over $40 in a matter of a few seconds, halting trading twice for a brief period even. What are we to make of all this, Chris?
Well, it's, pretty depressing for monetary metals investors. On the other hand, I suppose you could see it in a way as progress for the cause, because it was the most brazen, obvious, clumsy attack yet, and it has prompted a few people to acknowledge that it was a manipulation. The problem is the people who are acknowledging that it was a manipulation cannot quite bring themselves to question whether central banks were involved in it. But it was so obvious that even people who are not aligned with the manipulation school are acknowledging that somebody was very heavily trying to drive the price down. So now I think we've advanced to the point where most market observers will acknowledge that somebody is tampering with the gold market, that it's not a free market, and the question now is really only who's doing it. And perhaps in another few hundred years, financial journalism will try to put a critical question to central banks about their own surreptitious trading in the gold market.
It certainly seems manipulative because obviously a legitimate seller would try to sell when there is actual liquidity in the market as to maximize the sale price. And we've seen this sort of thing a number of times going back years now, so it is quite obvious what's happening. And there don't seem to be major investigations into these price raids, and it just keeps happening. I know you've got to be beating your head against a wall. Why don't we see government authorities or large investors crying foul?
Well, because these raids, I'm sure, are essentially instigated or underwritten by, if not actually implemented by governments. What some people don't realize, Mike, is that it is explicitly authorized by federal law here in the United States for the U.S. government, acting through the Exchange Stabilization Fund and the Federal Reserve, to rig any market, not only in the United States, but in the world. GATA brought a lawsuit against this in U.S. District Court in Boston back in 2001. I attended the only hearing on this lawsuit, and an assistant U.S. attorney representing the Fed and the Treasury Department told the court in support of a motion for summary judgment dismissal that the lawsuit had to be dismissed because the complaint of market rigging had no remedy at law, because the assistant U.S. attorney said the United States government claimed the power to do all the market rigging that our lawsuit accused it of doing. And our own subsequent research into the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, as amended in the 1970s, tended to confirm that assertion. The nice thing about that hearing was that the U.S. government, through this assistant U.S. attorney, got up and claimed the power to rig every market in the world. That's what the statute says. We're just having a very hard time getting the mainstream financial press to look at the statute and to put questions about surreptitious trading by central banks to the central banks themselves. But this most recent attack was so brazen and really clumsy. I know people think it was so clever because of its timing and the timing of it, but the lack of liquidity and everything like that. But they gave themselves away, and I think that is a sign of desperation, that they no longer can attack gold and keep the price down in subtle ways. They have to do this really obvious ham-handed stuff that even gets some pretty dense market observers suspicious. Now, I know for 10 years, GATA Chairman Bill Murphy and I have been observing this market, and practically every day for 10 years we've been saying they couldn't get any more obvious, and the next day they do get more obvious. But this one really, I think, took the cake. There's a Reuters story today that quotes a couple of gold traders as acknowledging that this was manipulation, and they're just trying to, wonder out loud who's behind it. Now, if Reuters can acknowledge at last that this attack on the gold market was a market rigging attack, well, we're that much closer to pinning responsibility on the main parties involved, which are Western central banks. Now, I don't know how much longer this is going to take us, but I think it's progress insofar as even the densest observers of the market are acknowledging its manipulation. Unfortunately, mining industry executives themselves are still quiet about this, and the World Gold Council, as usual, has nothing to say. But at least the scales are starting to fall from the eyes of a few people, precisely because these attacks are becoming more and more brazen and clumsy.
That leads me right into my next question here. I know you've been encouraging mining companies to band together and hold back some of their production from markets at these suppressed prices. I know First Majestic has been sitting on some of their silver production in the past year, but I know it's tough because if miners don't sell metal, they may not have the cash flow needed to keep the lights on. What is your sense of what the mining industry is thinking?
The mining industry, I think, Mike, is thinking that it should just die quietly and obediently. I think its value is likely to fall to zero, and its executives will have nothing to say for themselves or their companies all the way to zero. I think the industry is worthless, and it's worthless not so much because of the attack on the monetary metals by central banks. It's worthless because its own shareholders and executives are content to die quietly. If the industry will not stand up for itself, I have no idea why anyone would want to invest in it.
What about the institutions in the metals markets, such as the World Gold Council and Silver Users Association? I guess you commented on that a moment ago, but to expand on that, where are they coming from on all of this?
Well, I can only speculate about their motives, Mike. I think I can fairly say that they are useless to investors in the monetary metals. I find it laughable that something like the Sunday night, Monday morning attack on gold could happen, and here we are 5 days later, and the World Gold Council has had nothing to say about it. When even some gold traders can be quoted by Reuters and Financial Times and other people as saying, gee, this was an attack, this was a manipulation. But the World Gold Council has nothing to say. I have long suspected that the World Gold Council is really a mechanism of price suppression, that it operates itself, I think, to make sure that there never is a World Gold Council in lowercase WG and C. I think it exists mainly to make sure that there is no worldwide voice for gold investors and gold mining companies, because it's absolutely useless in the context of the attack on the industry. But it will have to answer for itself if anybody wants to try to get answers out of them. I wish the financial press would call up the World Gold Council today and ask it, hey, what did you think about what happened Sunday night and Monday morning? Are you in the least suspicious about it? I think you'll just get stony silence out of them, and I think that's really their worth to the industry.
Will definitely be interesting to see how much longer people are going to put up with it. I definitely sympathize with everything you're saying. It is quite frustrating. Well, Excellent stuff, Chris, even though it can be a little bit of a bleak picture here. Thanks for being so willing to speak the truth about what's going on. I know it must be a frustrating venture at times, but there's a lot of people out there in the precious metals community, ourselves included, who do appreciate the work that you're doing at GATA there. Now, before we let you go, can you give our listeners more info on how they can learn more about this and then follow GATA's work?
Oh, sure, Mike. Again, thanks for letting me harangue you about this. GATA is the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Our internet site is GATA.org. We're a nonprofit educational and civil rights organization. We've got tax-exempt status from the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. We are very grateful for any donations that can be made to us. You can donate by credit card over our internet site, or you can get our address off the internet site and send us an ordinary check, though I'm very reluctant to pitch people for donations these days now that our industry has been just so devastated. I'm not sure that anybody's got any money to give us anymore, but we will try to keep flying the flag and pleading the case for free and transparent markets and limited and accountable government, and particularly for free trading gold and silver as defenders of economic liberty through the world. And we do put out some dispatches to our email list every day, and if people would like to get on our list, they can just go to GATA.org and sign up for our dispatches in the right-hand column of our internet site.
Well, it's definitely a noble endeavor, Chris, and we appreciate it very much. Thanks again to Chris Powell of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Again, the website is GATA.org. We urge everyone to check out the great content available there that Chris and the guys put out on a regular basis. And before we close, we should reiterate and note that despite what seems like an awfully bleak picture for precious metals investors recently, eventually market forces will win out. If low prices continue to devastate the mining industry, production will fall and shortages will crop up. This forces prices to rise. So if you believe gold and silver have a bright future in the long term, today's suppressed prices are really a gift. It gives you more time to accumulate more ounces at what appear to be bargain prices. Well, that will do it for this week. Check back next Friday for our next weekly Market Wrap podcast. Until then, this has been Mike Gleason with Money Metals Exchange. Thanks for listening, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for this week's Money Metals podcast. Be sure to come back next week. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast through iTunes for answers to all of your questions, or to discreetly and securely buy or sell gold or silver coins, bars, and rounds. Call 1-800-800-1865 or visit www.moneymetals.com. Our knowledgeable and no-pressure specialists are standing by between 7 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday. Or you can lock in your order online, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, visit us at www.moneymetals.com or call 1-800-800-1865.